guys, and welcome back to another Freaky Friday video on my channel. I hate doing this, but I do have to apologize that there was no videos for the last 2 videos that I was supposed to upload. I actually got very sick, probably the sickest I've been in quite a while. And with everything that's going on in the world right now, I think that taking care of our health is really important. I'm still kind of recovering from a cold, so if I sound a little bit nasally or anything like that throughout this video, I do apologize, as I'm still not feeling 100%, but I do feel ready to film a video and I'm excited to share this one with you guys, so let's get right into it. So today I'm back and I'm going to be talking about another cryptid creature. Now this cryptid, or these cryptids that I'm going to be talking about today, I actually found out about not that long ago, and I thought they were super interesting, and I did want to make a video about them as soon as I found out about them, but for some reason I kept thinking that they were called Lemonheads and they're called Melonheads, and I kept typing into Google and getting frustrated because I couldn't find any information. And I don't know what's wrong with me, but when I typed in Lemonheads the last time, I actually came across a no sleep story on Reddit, and that is when I realized that I was typing the completely wrong thing into the search engine, and they're called Melonheads. So today, the cryptid that we are going to be talking about are the Melonheads, and if at any point throughout this video I refer to them as Lemonheads, I do apologize because I don't know why I keep calling them that. But anyways, let's get right into this cryptid. So the Melonheads are pretty much what you would think of when you heard somebody referring to something as a melon head. These are very small, humanoid-like creatures. They have almost like a small child or baby-like body, and then these huge melon-shaped, disfigured kind of heads. These creatures are also said to be cannibals, and they live in the forested areas of Connecticut, Ohio, and Michigan. So because these cryptids, or these creatures, come from 3 different states, each state has their own different legend on these creatures. All of them are pretty similar, but they do vary from state to state. So I'm going to be sharing the legends with you guys from each state first, and then I'm going to be talking about encounters with Melonheads. So I'm going to start off by talking about the legends that come from Connecticut, because in Connecticut there are 2 variations of this legend. So the first legend goes that in the 1960s in Fairfield County there was an insane asylum for the criminally insane, and it had burned down, killing all of the staff and most of the patients who were inside. But when they were looking through the records and everything like that, they found out that there was 10 to 20 patients that couldn't be accounted for. It is believed that these 10 to 20 people who couldn't be accounted for from the insane asylum, who were patients, somehow got out of the fire, and they were now living in the forests surrounding the insane asylum. They were living in these forests, and due to the cold weather and bad weather conditions that Connecticut does go through during the winter, they didn't really have much of a choice other than to resort to cannibalism, at some point contracting hydrocephalus, which resulted in their very large, strange-shaped heads. And I do believe that they're in this variation, wherever on in there, they do start taking part in incestual relationships, and then I guess like their offspring were born into these melon head creatures. The second legend from Connecticut basically dates back to the colonial times, when a family who was living in Shelton Turnbull was banished from their community after being accused of partaking in witchcraft. The family was banished, and not having anywhere to go, they also started living in the forest. And due to the cold weather, again, they basically resorted to cannibalism. They started partaking in incestual relationships, and this resulted in them turning into these morphed creatures with these large heads and small bodies known as Melonheads. So now let's move on and talk about the Ohio theory, or the Ohio legend. The Ohio legend is actually, I believe, one of the more popular ones. It was the first one that I ever came across, and when you type in Melonheads into Google or any search engine like that, it is usually the first legend that does come up. So this legend goes that the creatures known as the Melonheads were actually children that a scientist, however or whichever way, became guardian of. He brought these children into his facility, or his laboratory, I guess, in Kirtland, Ohio, and that is when he started to perform very painful and torturous experiments on these children. It is said that these children developed very strange shaped heads after being injected with a chemical by this scientist. And due to the abnormal development and growth of their heads, and that it wasn't stopping and it was just going so quickly, these children developed hydrocephalus, which seems to be a reoccurring thing in every single one of these legends. After developing this illness, and now they are having these really abnormally large heads, the children obviously were very, very mentally ill and unstable at this time due to all of the torture and the bad things that had happened to them by the scientist. But they were still very, very smart, and they came up with this plan to kill the scientist, and they did just that by burning down his facility and then escaping into the forest where they began to live. And at this time, they did resort to cannibalism, which again is a reoccurring thing in these legends, along with them being incest or, partaking in incest. That is something that just reoccurs in every single one of these legends. So now we are moving on to the legend that comes out of Michigan, which again is very, very similar to both the legend from Ohio as well as both of the legends from Connecticut. So this legend goes that the Melonheads in that area are mostly seen around Felton Mansion, but some people have also seen them around the area known as Ottawa County, according to one story that I read online. This legend goes that the Melonhead creatures were children who were living in Junction Insane Asylum when they developed hydrocephalus. They were being tested on by scientists and doctors to see if they could, reverse the symptoms. And when that failed, they kind of freed the children into the forest around Felton Mansion. And that is where they remain living today. These creatures also resorted to cannibalism and did start partaking in incestual relationships, which is how they still survive and are around today, because they are inbreeding, having babies. These babies have large melon heads. You get it, the reproductive organs, everything like that. So now that you guys kind of have a gist of the legends of each of these states where the Melonheads are said to live, we are going to get into some alleged encounters where people believe that they had first-hand encounters with Melonheads. Now, just like every single one of my cryptid videos, these encounters are not mine, these stories are not mine. I have never encountered a Melonhead. These are just people's stories that I have found online and I thought were very, very interesting, and I wanted to share with you guys because of that. So let's get right into these stories. So the first story that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today is dated sometime in the 1980s, when a group of teenagers headed out to the street that is known as Dracula Drive, which is actually just a nickname given to Velvet Street, which is located in Fairfield, Connecticut. This is an area where many people are said to have encounters with Melonheads. This is a Melonhead hotspot. People see them there all of the time, and a lot of the reports and sightings of Melonheads do actually come from this area. So these teenagers, being teenagers, wanted to get freaked out, so they all piled into one of their friends' vehicles and they drove down to this area. They sat in the car for a few minutes debating what to do, and then they kind of just got out of the car and walked into the forest, leaving the keys still in the vehicle, but I don't believe that the car was running. Just a little ways away from the car, in search for these Melonhead creatures, they were just looking around and joking about as teenagers do, when all of a sudden they heard the car start. They were all pretty confused because they were all together, so they thought that the vehicle was just being stolen by somebody who had seen them drive into the area. But when they walked back towards where the car was, it came speeding past them with them full on in the headlights, and they said that whoever was driving the vehicle could have almost passed as a human if it wasn't for this creature's huge melon-like shaped head. This next story that I'm going to share with you guys is one that I came across multiple times while researching Melonhead encounters. I believe that this is probably one of the most popular Melonhead encounters, but where I came across it was on Weird US, your travel guide to America's local legends and best kept secrets. Now this is a story about a man by the name of Tony who encountered these Melonheads in Chardon, Ohio in 2001. It varies from site to story who exactly Tony was with and how many people were in the car, but on one that I seen reoccurring was that Tony was out with his family, whether that be his kids, his wife, his parents. He was out and he was driving, and they were driving down a dark road, and they were out in search for Melonheads. So they were really actually out looking for these creatures, but it was getting pretty late and they'd been doing it for quite a while, just kind of joking around. and they decided that they had enough, so Tony turned his car around and was heading back out of this dark street that he had turned down, heading now towards home. This is when something caught Tony's attention outside of his vehicle. When he looked outside of his car, he saw this strange, scary creature running beside his car, keeping full pace with the vehicle. Now, what makes this encounter so creepy and unsettling, even more so than any of the other encounters that I'm going to share, is that contrary to legend, Tony says that this creature was not small, it was not dwarf size. He says that this creature stood at about 5'7", but besides that had all of the attributes, looked exactly like what you would think a melon head would look like. It had this very large head, this deformed face. The only thing that made him question if it was a melon head or not was how tall it was. And I think, personally, the taller it is, the creepier. I mean, like, the small ones are creepy too, but like, if they're coming at you, you could just kick them. But the big 5'7" cannibalistic naked melon head, I think that is so horrifying. So to me, this particular story definitely is more creepier than the other ones, because that isn't how the legend goes. You're not expecting to see a full-grown person with this big, large, strange shaped head. You're expecting to see a small little creature, which is why I think people are more likely to go out searching for melon heads, because they kind of almost sound humorous, like they're these little cannibalistic small things. But to see one and for it to be a fully sized, normal shaped sized human, it's just so creepy and unsettling. So now we are moving on to the third and the last story that I'm going to be sharing in this video. Now, I also got this story off of Weird Michigan, Your Travel Guide to Michigan's Local Legends, and I just wanted to give them credit for that. I highly recommend that you guys go check out these websites. They have a lot of really cool stories and information and whatever. But yeah, I'm going to be sharing a story that I found on that website. So this encounter was shared by a woman by the name of Kelly. She says that this is her first-hand encounter with melon heads, or at least what she believed was a melon head. So one night, while it was dark out, it was late, her and a few of her friends went to investigate or search around, go on a little adventure, and searched through what was the abandoned Felt mansion. While inside the mansion exploring, all of a sudden while they were walking around in the mansion, in the distance they saw what appeared to be a silhouette of a very small person with a large head. She said that she couldn't really make out this person too much, she could just kind of see their silhouette, but what she does confirm 100% is that they had a very, very, very large head. Now at first, her and her friends weren't too frightened, and one of them actually yelled out "hey" to this guy, just thinking that he was another explorer or adventurer who was searching out the abandoned building just like they were. But after yelling out "hey" to this creature or this man, this creature kind of just grunted at them and then started to move towards them very, very quickly. It was at this time that all of the girls, Kelly and her friends, all of a sudden had a realization, and it finally sunk in, the story that they had been being told since they were very young about the legends of the melon heads. And like I mentioned, they couldn't really see this guy, they couldn't see anything about him except for the fact that he had an extremely large melon-shaped head. So Kelly and her friends fled the scene, they got into their vehicle, and they got out of there as fast as possible. And this is a story that Kelly shares quite often because she does strongly believe that what she had seen that day was in fact a melon head. That was the last story that I have for you guys on the melon heads, and that does bring us to the end of this video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. I do just want to apologize because I feel like this video is a little bit short, but I feel like the cryptid videos are always a little bit short, but I do really still enjoy making them, and I know that a lot of you guys enjoy watching them. I'm going to try and start doing 2 at a time so that they are longer, like I mentioned in one of my previous videos. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!